Got a dilemma for you today. This is a beautifully old Colnago C40. I'll show you some of the details. The paintwork on it is fantastic. This is how Colnago used to build bikes. But it's come in for a full strip down and service, and I've got to the point where I've stripped everything down, given everything clean, and we need to sort of quote the customer on the best way forward, so to speak. So our job is to try and, one, bring it back to life. If we can, try and get to some lower ratio gears for some big hill climbing days and get an idea of whether we can restore it. The first thing I want to do with an old bike like this is take a really good look at the frame. There is evidence of this being more of a vintage frame. There's parts under here where the clear coat is starting to lift. There's a couple of bits of corrosion just creeping in here and there. In fact, I've seen far worse. The danger areas on all of these is when aluminium meets carbon, you'll find like a bubbling type effect, and the whole frame looks really clean. Now, I haven't taken out the bottom brackets because this is a Campagnolo bottom bracket. You don't need to take the cups out, and in here there's actually sort of a bonded aluminium section. So again, the risk of taking these out can sometimes offset, the benefit. So I tend to leave these in and leave them undisturbed unless I feel there's a problem. I don't think there's a problem, so I'm going to leave them in unless I really have to. The paintwork on this, by the way, is beautiful. This would have all been done by hand, this little moon effect with the little highlights around here. Absolutely stunning, so nice to see. The frame's looking like it's in great condition. The fork is also in great condition, which is always good news as well, because these quite often suffer with sort of compression type injuries around here. You can see this is actually an inch diameter, but this all looks fantastic. Crown race, all good. Where aluminium meets carbon, you can just about see here, there's a little bit of that bubbling effect that we can see, but really not that bad. So I'm fairly happy to proceed that we can bring this bike back, knowing that we've got a fairly solid chassis. I mean, there's never any guarantees in life, right? But a visual inspection so far looks good. So when it comes to all the other components, there is definitely some wear and tear. First of all, the wheels look like they've been relatively new. This looked like a new set of wheels. These are the Campagnolo Urus. There's no concaving going on the rim brakes. The tyres look brand new as well, little skinny 23s. Not used to seeing them so much anymore. And all the bearings in these all feel absolutely fantastic, really super smooth. I mean, they do look virtually new. The brakes, fairly old Campagnolo record brakes, but again, it looks like they had a new set of brake pads. There's some evidence here they've not been perfectly aligned because you've just got this little lip starting to appear where that wear line is, but they're working beautifully smoothly. It's even just after a fairly modest clean. Headset is in fantastic condition as well. That can just go straight back in with a clean and a grease. The cassette and the chain are definitely worn. Using our chain checker, this is well over a 1% stretch. I've not even bothered cleaning this. This just sits here. It definitely needs replacing. And the cassette has also got loads of evidence of wear. I can run my fingernail over the leading edge. I can feel where, imagine the chain is hitting it. And so you sort of get that effect where, imagine if you've been hitting metal tent peg with a hammer and it sort of flares out over the end. That's what you can almost feel with your fingernail. So the cassette is definitely toast. And as a result, the inner chainring is definitely worn as well. You can just start seeing these tooth profiles becoming a little bit concave, but they should be virtually symmetrical. The outer one, a bit harder to tell. I think the outer one will be okay, but we don't know that really until you get the whole system working. Though the bearings, they definitely look like they're spinning, but you can definitely feel play, and you could hear them creak as well when the bike was all together. So these bearings here need replacing. If you're not familiar with Campagnolo, remember these bearings are actually held on this sort of hearth joint axle here. You take the circlip off and you remove them with a special tool and you replace them. You'll see there's no seal on this side for reduced seal drag, all the seals on the other side. And then we have the record rear derailleur. These were beautiful, but look how small they are compared to the modern electronic rear derailleurs. Super light as well, beautifully well made. Sadly, the front derailleur has snapped, so there should be a little bridge in here. You can see where this has snapped. Fairly common with these, sadly. Now this part you used to be able to replace. In fact, it's just a small circlip. You can take this part out. It is a serviceable part. Right now I can't find any stock for it, but if we can, we'll try and replace that. If not, that's going to need replacing. What we always try and do with this is give the customer an idea. What would it take just to get it back to life? Replace this, all those worn out components and all the labour involved as well, all the new cables and cleaning all this up. And that's coming to around 800 quid. So Campagnolo record components are expensive, even if they are a little bit old. The next thing is, well, what happens if we want to upgrade it a little bit, reduce those gear ratios? Well, to try and get this to a bigger cassette, we're also going to need a bigger, longer cage rear derailleur as well. you can't really change the cages on that easily. So something we're looking into, but to do it properly is around £1,000, again, including all the front derailleur bits and pieces. Now, the big question there is, well, what if you were to just upgrade the entire thing? So currently we are at Campagnolo Chorus 12 speed, and that gives us significantly lower gears. So we can go to a much smaller chain set, we can go to a much bigger cassette, and we're on the new 12 speed system. So there are some benefits for that. And that comes in at around 1,600 quid. Again, when you're buying into a whole group set, it's always a bit easier because you can shop around and get deals and that sort of thing. Okay, our few options in. First of all, Campagnolo 11-speed record gets expensive, even though it's some quite vintage equipment. So that front mech damaged beyond repair, sadly, £112 to replace that. We could try and downgrade that to a lower grade one, but it's not actually that much different. New chain from Campagnolo is £37. A new cassette, probably one of the biggest expenses here. The current one that goes to a maximum of 29 is £150. To go bigger than that, we need to go to £164. Gets quite spendy. The new chainrings are unbelievably expensive for what they are essentially, but a new 34 tooth chainring, the inner one, is 73. The possibility of the outer 157, the ultra torque bearings 32. Again, we can source the same size bearings marginally cheaper, but it's such a small difference that really I like to keep things original. The bar tape 32 quid, and then because we're using Campagnolo record, I really want to make sure we're using original equipment cables. So the cables are a little bit expensive, they're £8 each. As opposed to our normal Jaguar stainless steel ones we use for Shimano, which are about £4 each. It all kind of adds up really. By the time you add up the gear outer, the brake-in, it's all Campagnolo specific, that all adds up. Some bar tape on there and our labour. So the total, just replacing all of that like for like, comes to about £813. If we then wanted to add in the bigger cassette, and of course we'll need the longer cage rear derailleur to do that, we get to 1,117. Now, if you search around, the Campagnolo Chorus group set, which is a fantastic upgrade, 12 speed, is currently on sale for around £1,000. So we need to add a few more bits and pieces to that. But if we can get a price match and we can get all the right crank lengths at all the right bits and pieces, then we can potentially price match this and give the customer pretty much an up-to-date group set for about the same sort of money. So difficult decisions to make. Now, there is one more option that I'm pretty sure you want to explore, and that is, what if you buy these parts second-hand, or you spend some time scouring the internet for them? Well, just looking for that Campagnolo front derailleur, for instance, it is such a common fault that they break. There really aren't any I can find on here that are compatible, sadly. Lots and lots of very old vintage stuff on there, real following. Now, if the customer decides they want to go down the route of trying to source the parts themselves, we really welcome that. All we would do is charge a small admin fee for essentially generating a comprehensive shopping list for them, and then invite them to bring those bits in when they can, because this has probably taken me about 45 minutes to work out all the various connotations, what's compatible, what's available, and come up with these options. So if you're going to source those parts yourselves, just a small fee to cover that time. So yeah, let's see. With everything you've seen here in this video, what would you do? You've got a couple of options. You've got the bring it back to life. You can possibly downgrade a few components here and there to make it work. You could keep it as original as you can, but then try to get those lower gear ratios, or brand spanking new 12-speed group set with all those lower gear ratios, the shorter cranks, everything you could hope for. Do you think this old frame is worth it? Over to you. I look forward to hearing what you've got to say in the comments. If you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe, see you on the next one.